The question isn't just who killed woke, it's who is actually taking over. And most importantly, are we ready for what is coming next? Now, speaking of what's coming next, Ortega y Gasset warns us in chapter 3 of his book, The Revolt of the Masses, right? He says we are entering an age where the mass man, the average person who thinks he is exceptional for just existing, starts to take over the civilization that he cannot understand and cannot maintain. Now, I want you, fellow analysts, to tell me if that actually sounds familiar. In case you haven't heard, Ubisoft just shut down Leamington Studio. Check this out. Ubisoft Leamington officially closes its doors after 23 years. Spotted by Games Industry Biz, the studio announced today its final day with a post on its official LinkedIn page, which will soon be merged with the Ubisoft Reflections page. After many incredible years, we want to share the news that Ubisoft Leamington has officially closed its doors. We are beyond grateful for our talented team, whose creativity, passion, and dedication have left a lasting mark on the games we've created, the memories we've shared, and the community we've built in Leamington. The post reads. It also adds that anyone local to Leamington will still see our remaining team around town and at local industry events. So there are still a handful of people working for Ubisoft remotely in Leamington, just not at the historic building they once all shared, where numerous talented developers have passed through in the last 2 decades. Everything just seems to be going haywire at Ubisoft. Tencent just dropped over €1 billion to co-create a Frankenstein Ubisoft subsidiary that now owns Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and all the other big IPs. You see, fellow analysts, the headlines seem to read like progress, but if we strip down the onion layers, if you will see that this is decay in real time. You see, fellow analysts, the mass man isn't stupid, he's just unaware. He's not unskilled, he's disconnected. He doesn't ask what built the world around him. He just assumes that power, comfort, and tech he enjoys are just the default settings of life. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. Ubisoft isn't restructuring, they are retreating, closing studios, selling IP control, refusing to fix the broken creative engine. They're not building, my fellow analysts, they're monetizing a corpse. But here is what Ortega knew and quite possibly saw coming. And this is the part that I simply can't stop thinking about. You see, my fellow analysts, civilization wasn't built by the mass man, it was built by aristocrats. Not the aristocrats of blood, but of intellect and fortitude. I'm talking about the ones who carried the torch. Let me break it down for you guys. First off, we have the thinkers. The thinkers are your philosophers, your scientists, your artists who saw beneath the surface. Your Plato, Newtons, and Galileos. They weren't just smart. They saw patterns that nobody else could. They built the framework of modern society. You see, the mass man lacks the ability to question foundation, to go deeper than dopamine and ask why. Number 2, we have the statesmen. Now, these statements are the rulers with vision. Your Abraham Lincolns, your Alexander the Great, your Caesars. You see, these people weren't bureaucrats. They were the architects of destiny. They managed chaos and bent history to their will. You see, the mass man lacks the discipline to lead. He simply reacts. He doesn't build futures. And then number 3, we have the builders. These are your engineers, your creators, your Da Vinci's, your Edisons and Michelangelos. My bad. Michelangelo. These were the hands and minds that shaped matter into meaning. They didn't just have ideas, man. I mean, they manifested them. You see, the mass man lacks the ability to create his own legacy instead of just consuming what others made. And then number 4, you have your scholars, your Einsteins, your Madame Curies, your Socrates. These people weren't just smart, they were curious. They weren't in it for clout. I mean, these people chased truth for its own sake. You see, the mass man lacks intellectual curiosity. He wants answers, yes, but he doesn't wrestle with the hard questions. And then last and finally, we have the cultural aristocrats. These are your Shakespeares, your Beethovens, your Picassos. These weren't just entertainers, man. They were transcenders of destiny, bruh. They crafted art that just elevated the soul, not just numbed the mind. What the mass man lacks is the ability to see beauty as a transformation, not just an escape. So, my fellow analysts, I hear you asking, so what does this have to do with Ubisoft? Well, everything. Allow me to explain. You see, Ubisoft was once run by builders, thinkers, and artists. But now, they've handed the reins to the mass mentality. They turned their legacy into a product, sold it off and called it a win. The Tencent deal isn't a strategy, it's sedation. A corporate lullaby, if you will. And here's the part I need to be real with you guys about, right? I'm not gonna front with you analysts, right? I'm still deep in the trenches with this book. I haven't done my quizzes, I haven't done my examinations, so I'm not here claiming to be some philosophical badass. But it's just that sometimes you just feel the truth before you can actually articulate it or quote it. And that's where I'm at. And when I saw Ubisoft gut their own studios and sell 25% of their soul to Tencent and try to spin it as innovation, I literally felt Ortega just rising from the pages. You see, this isn't just about gaming. It's about what happens when builders step down and consumers take the throne. When art becomes an algorithm. When culture becomes a commodity. That's Ortega's warning. And Ubisoft just made it all too real. And if we keep mistaking collapse for progress, don't be surprised when